What's up guys, today we're going over the Graviton lance, which just received a huge buff in PvE, and in this video I'll be going over what that is and showing off how good it is now and why I think it's one of the best primaries in the game now. This scene is an absolute monster. And before we get into all that good stuff, a quick word about today's video sponsor. This video was sponsored by Rise of Kingdoms. Rise of Kingdoms is an epic cross-platform strategy game that takes players on an immersive journey through various historical eras. With an expansive open world environment, players can explore and conquer new lands, where you can choose from 14 historical civilizations that have truly existed. Famous generals and unique material units from different civilizations will obey your every command as you build your own legends on the battlefield. Battles happen in real time on a single, enormous map inhabited by players and NPCs. No isolated bases or separate battles. Infinite zoom allows you to transition freely between the world view and individual cities or barbarian outposts. And you can play along with more than 60 million users anywhere on any device. And now Rise of Kingdoms will welcome the arrival of a new Greece civilization, featuring exclusive commanders and special units, Argaraspides, adding a new level of excitement to the game. Also, the Civilization Clash event is about to begin. Join the Civilization Clash event at ROK.games and fight for your civilization. There will also be chances for players to win special prizes, including the Apple Vision Pro and more. So if you're ready to explore Greece and conquer new lands, download Rise of Kingdoms now by clicking the link in the description or the pinned comment, or scanning the QR code on screen. Don't forget to use promo code GREASE for ROK for 20 silver keys for new players, and take part in the Civilization Clash event at ROK.games and win Apple Vision Pro. Thanks again to Rise of Kingdoms for sponsoring this video. So what is the update to the Graviton lance? They buffed its PV damage by 67%, which is huge. That is one of the biggest buffs I've seen in a long time. And it makes this thing pump out damage like crazy. And not only versus red bars, when you get up to a major, it still goes, doing over 17,000 per burst on a red bar in this lost sector. Then to Carl, over 8.8 thousand. It is a lot of damage. So comparing that to a few other things in the game, just to see like how good it actually is and how much damage it's doing, for it to be a 1-to-1 comparison for red bars, it needs to be an exotic and an energy weapon, and there's not really too much that is comparable. So let's try the Risk Runner, which should be one of the higher DPS energy exotics because it's a 900 RPM SMG. And for a ranged weapon, there are no other pulses, mostly bows, but I found the Hardlight that could be a decent comparison. So looking at DPS of the Graviton lance, it's going to shoot off all of its bullets in 5.6 seconds, which means 46.5 thousand DPS versus red bars, then a little over 23,000 for the major. And those numbers are obviously extremely high for a primary. So comparing it to the Risk Runner, which is a 900 RPM SMG with our conductor, look at damage on the red bar, then Carl once again. And looking at the DPS of one mag, 41 bullets. Very quick at 2.6 seconds. The DPS of red bars is a little bit lower than that of the lance, but the red bar is a little bit higher, which is kind of interesting. But overall, they are pretty similar. And finally, comparing it to the Hardlight, damage on the red bar and Carl. Looking at the rate of fire once again for 9 bullets. This one's gonna be pretty quick too, only taking 4.7 seconds, which means the DPS is a lot lower than our 2 at 30,000. Then on Carl, just under 16,000. So the DPS of Graviton lance is right up there with the best type of primaries in the game, SMGs and sidearms. But the thing about the Graviton lance is it's a pulse rifle with near infinite range. So not only is it among the best DPS in the game for a primary weapon, it is also a pulse rifle. And one thing that most other weapons in the game don't have is a perk called Cosmology, where kills with this weapon cause enemy targets to detonate and spawn void projectiles that track targets. Is arguably the best explosion type perk in the game. Every time you get a kill with the weapon or one of the explosions, it will spawn in 5 of these void projectiles, which will travel around and seek out targets, doing massive damage. So in terms of just raw accurate potential of this perk, it is unlike anything I've used in years. I haven't used this pulse in a long time. And just for a comparison, I've done this Shiro-Chi checkpoint tens of thousands of times with every exotic in the game, unlocking its catalyst, upgrading weapons, whatever it is. And I cannot imagine a single weapon, let alone really builds, that can do it as efficient as this. Obviously, most of the enemies are thrall, you expect them to die. But a lot of the different things in the game, like a Sunshot, can't maintain this level of a chain reaction. And that's because the way these explosions are not only delayed, they also travel and can cover distance, making it way easier to have this chain reaction effect in different situations, not just like when everything's right on top of each other. So now, really, the Graviton Lance is a pulse rifle version of the Sunshot, which does more damage per shot at over 17k compared to the Sunshot doing just over 14k. The Lance has way more range. The Black Hole shot has infinite range, and the pulse rifle first bullet will obviously have very good range, and you have to be really far away before you get full damage drop off on that bullet too, compared to Sunshot, where, you know, very quickly you find the full damage drop off of the weapon, also because it is a hand cannon. And if you compare the explosions of the two perks, the cosmology is way better. Just the way how it's delayed and can travel makes it so it can chain in way more situations, and it does a lot of damage compared to the Sunshot, where if there's even a tiny gap between two enemies, the chain reaction will just instantly die, and it does less damage, and overall really falls apart once you get into harder content, where the Graviton Lance has a way higher point before it will stop working. And speaking of harder content, taking this thing into the endgame, in seasons where there are no Pulse Champion mods, it can be a little bit weird to use a primary weapon and an exotic weapon that isn't doing anything for you in terms of champions. But with the new systems added this year, you could always throw on a Chill Clip Fusion to take advantage of both Unstoppable and Overload, and you don't have to deal with the barrier, which, since this is a void weapon, you could use volatile rounds. If you're on solar, you can use something like Radiant. So there's definitely ways to get around it. And overall, this is only really a problem in like solo lost sectors, where you have to be the one doing all of the champions. If you're in a 3-man fire team or whatever, you can just split that up and you'll be good to go. But like I mentioned, compared to other similar weapons like the Sunshot that kind of fall apart once you get into harder content, the cosmology does so much damage and can travel such a great distance that it really didn't feel like it fell apart in this lost sector when I was 10 under. Killing one thing still chained and killed everything nearby, and adding in the fact that this pulse just does so much damage per shot, it just felt extremely good and one of the best primaries I've used in a long time. It really is just a better Sunshot in a pulse form, and the Sunshot was always one of my favorite primaries and exotics in the game, and now I feel like I have one that I can take into the in-game and feel just as good. And finish off the video will just be the Disgrace gameplay, which I've done with almost every weapon, every build in the game. And I know a lot of people out there be like, oh, well, of course it's going to destroy this like easy content, but I'm comparing it to everything I've used ever in this, which is basically everything, right? And there aren't many weapons, if any, that can do what this thing was doing in this gameplay, let alone entire builds in the game which are extremely strong can't even do what this single weapon is doing. It is absolutely crazy. Anyways, I think that's gonna be it for the video. Like usual, thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.
Dense hive signatures in a facility